The wind moaned across the open plains,
We have to go.
carrying with it the scent of wet
We have
earth
to
and
go
cedar.
now.
Lightning flashed on the far
go
horizon,
now.
illuminating the rugged stretch of Luke Carver's ranch, miles of grassland fenced in by weathered wood and barbed wire. He had been out checking the fence line before the storm hit when he spotted something unusual near the old creek bed, a figure lying half buried in the mud, still as a fallen scarecrow. He dismounted, boots sinking in the soaked ground, and turned her over gently. She was breathing, a woman, pale, her clothes torn and soaked, her wrists bound with coarse rope. Mud streaked her face, but even through the grime, he could see she was young, maybe late 20s, her cheekbones sharp, her hair the color of storm clouds. Luke had found strays before, runaways, drifters, a few lost travelers, but something about this one made his chest tighten. She stirred, her lips cracked. "Please," her voice rasped, soft yet oddly commanding, "untie me, I crave freedom." Luke froze. The words were strange. Not desperate, but deliberate, almost ritualistic. Still, he couldn't leave her there. He lifted her into the saddle, rode back to the barn through the rising wind, and laid her down on a pile of hay. The storm broke fully as thunder rolled over the valley. Inside the barn, lantern light painted their faces in flickering gold. The horses shifted uneasily, snorting as if they sensed something unnatural. Luke knelt beside her, pulling his knife from his belt, hesitating. The ropes were tight around her wrists, deep red marks where she had struggled. "Who tied you up?" he asked, his voice low. Her eyes fluttered open, gray eyes, sharp and searching. "Does it matter?" she whispered. "Just untie me." There was something in her tone, not pleading, not afraid, that sent a shiver up his spine. She didn't sound like a victim. She sounded like someone who knew exactly what she wanted. The blade sliced through the rope. It fell away, limp against the hay. The woman exhaled slowly, as though tasting freedom itself, then sat up with a grace that didn't match her earlier weakness. Her wrists bore the imprint of captivity, yet she seemed untouched by pain. Luke stood, uneasy. "You hurt anywhere?" She tilted her head, studying him. "You're kind," she said softly. "Most men wouldn't have helped." "I ain't most men," he muttered, turning toward the door. "You can rest here till morning. Then I'll take you to town." But when he glanced back, she was already on her feet, barefoot, eyes fixed on the storm beyond the barn doors. Lightning flared again, and for a split second, her shadow stretched impossibly long across the floorboards. "Town won't help me," she said, voice almost lost to the thunder. "I've been running too long. Every time I find a place to rest, the past finds me." Luke frowned. "You in some kind of trouble?" She smiled faintly, not with warmth, but something else, a sadness threaded with knowing. "You could say that, but trouble has a way of following those who show mercy." Her words sank into him like a stone in water. He'd heard superstition before. The land was full of stories. Cursed rivers, ghost riders, women who disappeared under the moonlight. But standing there, watching her brush damp hair from her face, he couldn't shake the feeling that those stories had just come alive. "What's your name?" he asked finally. She looked at him for a long moment, eyes glinting in the lantern glow. "Names don't matter when you've had to change them too many times," she said. "But once, I was called Alara." "Alara." He repeated it quietly, as though testing its weight. Rain hammered the roof. The air inside the barn grew colder. One of the horses whinnied sharply, kicking at the stall door. Luke turned, frowning, but when he looked back, Alara had moved closer, almost silently. "You shouldn't have untied me so easily," she murmured. Before he could reply, the lantern flame flickered violently, shadows twisting across the walls like restless spirits. The air thickened, pressing down on him until he could barely breathe. Then, just as suddenly, it was gone. The light steadied, the horses calmed, and Alara stood still, her expression unreadable. Luke swallowed hard. "You need rest," he said, more to himself than to her. "I'll bring you a blanket." But as he stepped toward the door, her voice stopped him cold. "Thank you, Luke Carver," she said softly. "You've done what no one else dared. You've set me free." He froze, heart hammering. He hadn't told her his name. The storm outside roared, shaking the barn doors on their hinges, and deep down, beneath the noise of the thunder and the rain, Luke felt the unsettling certainty that something far beyond his understanding had just been unleashed. Would you like me to continue part 2 in the same slow burn cinematic tone? Or make it faster, darker, and more chilling for your YouTube storytelling version? The storm had passed, but the air around the ranch still felt heavy, like the sky hadn't quite decided to let go of the night. Luke woke before dawn, boots still on, head resting against the edge of the couch in his cabin. He hadn't slept properly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, Alara, standing in that flickering lantern light, her expression calm yet unreadable. And those words she'd said before he left the barn, "You've set me free." He rubbed his face and stood, feeling the weight of unease pressing on his chest. The wind outside had gone still, unnaturally still. Not even the crickets were singing. When he reached the barn, his stomach sank. The door was wide open, swinging lazily in the morning breeze. Inside, the hay was scattered, one of the lanterns lay shattered, and the stall where his prized stallion, Ashfall, had been tethered, was empty. "Damn it," Luke muttered, scanning the muddy ground. Hoof prints, fresh ones, led straight out toward the ridge. And alongside them, smaller footprints, barefoot. She was gone. He saddled his second horse and followed the trail. The valley below glistened with rainwater, the sun barely breaking over the distant hills. But even under the morning light, something about the land felt changed, quiet, but not peaceful. The fences he'd built himself years ago were marked with something strange, small symbols carved into the posts. Circles, lines, patterns that didn't belong to any rancher's hands. As he rode on, unease turned to dread. The prince led him toward the old creek, the same place he had first found her. And there she was. At first glance, Luke thought she was waiting for him. Her figure stood beneath an oak tree by the water's edge, her hair loose, her clothes clean, too clean, like she'd never crawled through the mud at all. His stallion, Ashfall, grazed quietly beside her, unbothered. "Alara," he called out, relief and anger tangled in his throat. "You took my damn horse." She turned slowly, her gray eyes reflecting the pale light of dawn. "He wanted to be free," she said softly. "Just like me." He dismounted, fists clenched. "You can't just." He stopped mid-sentence. Behind her, hanging from the tree, was the rope he'd used to untie her, neatly tied again into a perfect loop. "Alara," he said, his voice lowering. "What's this?" She looked up at it as if admiring a piece of art. "A reminder," she whispered, "that freedom always comes at a price." Luke felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What are you talking about? Who tied you up? What the hell are you running from?" Her gaze met his, and for the first time, he saw the depth behind it, not fear, but eternity. You still think I was running from something, Luke, she said. But no, I was running toward something. The creek's surface rippled though there was no wind. The air seemed to thicken around them. Toward what? He managed to ask. She smiled faintly, stepping closer. Toward the one who would set me free. He stumbled back. You're not making any sense. I was bound, she interrupted, her voice calm, almost kind. Not by rope, but by a promise. A curse, if you like. Every century, one soul must untie me, release me from what keeps me trapped between worlds. And you were kind enough to do it. Luke shook his head. That's crazy. Is it? She asked softly. Then tell me, how did I know your name last night? The question struck him silent. The creek began to churn, water swirling in impossible patterns. The rope above them twisted, creaking, as if pulled by invisible hands. Ashfall neighed and reared, breaking into a gallop across the plain, leaving Luke and Alara alone beneath the tree. Luke's instincts screamed at him to run, but his feet wouldn't move. Alara stepped closer, and though her face was calm, her eyes burned with light, faint, silver, and unearthly. Don't be afraid, she whispered. You've done what I asked. The craving was never for freedom alone, Luke. It was for release. He stumbled backward as the ground beneath her feet shimmered like water. The air rippled, distorting her figure, until it wasn't human anymore. A soft glow surrounded her, the outline of her form dissolving like mist. Alara, he shouted. Her voice echoed, both near and far. You untied me, and now, I untie you. The rope snapped. A gust of wind rushed through the valley, carrying her whispering laughter. Then, silence. When Luke opened his eyes, the sun was high. The tree stood bare, the rope gone, the creek calm. But at his feet lay his stallion's reins, folded neatly beside a scrap of paper, words written in charcoal. You freed me, Luke, but not from what I crave. He stared at the message, heart pounding, the sound of the wind returning, softer now, but filled with whispers that carried her name. That night, as the moon rose over the ranch, Luke could swear he heard hooves in the distance, and a voice, faint but unmistakable, whispering his own words back to him. Untie me, I crave.